The black SUV cut through the morning mist like a silent shadow along the cobblestone streets of Pine Valley. Michael Anderson adjusted the rearview mirror and observed Emma, his 6-year-old daughter, pressed against the back window. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she pointed to each cabin they passed. "Daddy, look at that pretty little house. It looks like a dollhouse." Emma clapped her hands, making her beaded bracelet jingle. "It's very pretty indeed, my princess," Michael smiled, but his smile didn't reach his tired eyes. Beside him, Brooke Miller checked something on her phone, her fingers sliding quickly across the screen. "Michael, you're too tense. Relax, it's just a weekend." Brooke touched his arm with calculated delicacy. "Emma will love it, and you'll be able to rest a bit from that crazy routine." "I hope so," Michael sighed. "It's been so long since we've had a moment just for us, right, Emma?" The little girl turned, smiling. "It's going to be the best weekend ever. I brought my binoculars to see the birds and my flashlight for exploring." Brooke observed Emma in the rearview mirror, a superficial smile on her lips. "How cute. You're going to have so much fun, darling." There was something in Brooke's voice that didn't sound completely natural, but Michael was too distracted to notice. Since losing his wife 3 years ago, he had thrown himself into work like a shipwreck victim clinging to a plank. Anderson and Associates Construction had become his only anchor, and Emma had the nannies, the private tutors, the full-time school. "We're here," announced Michael as he spotted Pine Lodge. The establishment was charming, with its wooden walls and well-kept gardens. Emma jumped out of the car and ran toward the entrance, spinning with her arms open. "Daddy, it's like a fairy castle." "Careful, Emma. You'll hurt yourself running like that." Brooke approached, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. "Let's go in." Carefully. Michael pulled the suitcases from the trunk, watching his daughter play among the garden flowers. For a moment he felt a pang of guilt. When was the last time he had seen Emma so happy and free? At the reception, a friendly older woman greeted them. "Welcome to Pine Lodge. I'm Mrs. Eleanor. You must be the Anderson family." "That's right." Michael extended his hand. "Is this the cabin we reserved?" "Precisely. The hydrangea cabin, our coziest suite. It has a wonderful view of the valley." Brooke stepped forward. "Perfect. And about the rooms, and there's an annex for the little girl, isn't there? It would be better for her to have her own space." Michael frowned. "Brooke, Emma always sleeps near me when we travel." "Michael, she's already 6 years old. She needs independence." Brooke smiled, but her eyes remained cold. "It will be good for both of you." Mrs. Eleanor diplomatically intervened. "The annex is right next to the main room, Mr. Anderson. It's separate but very close. Many families. She liked this arrangement. I want to stay near Daddy." Emma clung to Michael's leg. "Sweetie, it will be an adventure. You'll have your own little room, like a big girl." Michael stroked her hair, trying to sound excited. Brooke observed the scene with disguised impatience. "Shall we see the cabin? I'm eager to check it out." The hydrangea cabin was truly charming. Large windows overlooked the valley shrouded in mist, and the stone fireplace promised cozy nights. Emma ran to explore every corner, marveling at the rustic details. "Daddy, there's a porch where you can see the trees," she shouted from the annex. "And there's a bed with a flowery quilt." Michael smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. "That's great, Princess." Brooke efficiently organized the luggage, separating clothes into closets. "Michael, how about we have dinner in town tonight? I heard about a charming restaurant." "Sounds great." Michael threw himself into an armchair, feeling the weight of fatigue. "It's been a while since the 3 of us went out together." "It will be special." Brooke kissed his forehead. "I'm going to take a shower. Emma, how about you do the same? We have a lovely night ahead." While Brooke was getting ready, Michael and Emma stayed on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains orange and pink. "Daddy, are you happier here?" Emma asked, settling onto his lap. "Why do you ask that, sweetie?" "Because at home, you always look worried. Here you're smiling." Michael felt his heart tighten. "Daddy works a lot, but that doesn't mean I'm not happy. Especially when I'm with you." "Then can we come here more often?" "Of course, Princess, I promise." But even as he made that promise, Michael knew that the reality of Chicago would soon engulf them again. The commitments, the meetings, the constant pressure for results. Brooke appeared on the porch, impeccable in a navy blue dress, ready for our first night in Pine Valley. Dinner was pleasant, with Emma fascinated by the town lights and traditional dishes. Brooke was attentive, asking questions about Emma's school and her favorite drawings, but Michael noticed that she checked her phone constantly, as if expecting something important. Back at the cabin, Emma was exhausted but happy. This was the best day of my life. We still have 2 whole days ahead, sweetie. Tomorrow we'll go on a beautiful trail, said Brooke. I know a special place, very secluded. Michael found this strange. How do you know? You've never been to Pine Valley. I did a lot of research online. I found tips about unique places off the common tourist path. After putting Emma to bed, Michael and Brooke stayed in the living room in front of the fireplace. The crackling flames created an intimate atmosphere. Thank you for organizing all this, said Michael, pulling her close. We really needed this time together. We deserve to be happy, Michael. You work so hard. You dedicate yourself so much. Brooke caressed his face. Sometimes I think you forget to live. Since I lost Melissa, working is the only thing that keeps me going. And Emma? Michael hesitated. Emma reminds me of her. Sometimes it's hard to look at my daughter and not feel her mother's absence. Brooke nodded understandingly. I understand, but you can't live in the past forever. There's a future waiting for us. That night, while Michael slept deeply, Emma woke to a strange noise, voices whispering outside her room. She got up and walked to the door, pressing her ear against it. She could hear Brooke speaking quietly on the phone, but couldn't make out the words. The little girl's heart beat faster, and she returned to bed, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Something in that voice didn't seem right, but she was too small to understand what that feeling of alert growing in her chest meant. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. The dawn in Pine Valley brought with it a dense mist that covered the valley like a mysterious veil. Emma woke up early, excited for the second day of adventures. Leaving the annex to find her father, she found Brooke in the kitchen preparing coffee. Good morning, Emma. Did you sleep well? Brooke smiled, but there was something mechanical about her kindness. Good morning. Where's Daddy? Still sleeping. How about we have breakfast together while he rests? Brooke poured orange juice into a colorful cup. Did you like your little room? Emma hesitated. I liked it, but I heard voices last night. Brooke froze for an instant, the juice pitcher suspended in the air. Voices? What kind of voices, dear? Someone talking quietly. I thought it was you. Must have been the wind in the trees. It makes strange noises at night. Brooke forced a laugh. Or maybe some guest talking on the porch. Sound travels a lot here in the mountains. Michael appeared in the kitchen, his hair disheveled and a more rested expression. Good morning, family. How are my 2 favorite ladies? Daddy, Emma ran to hug him. Brooke said we're going hiking today. That's right. Michael kissed the top of his daughter's head. How about a hearty breakfast to give us energy? Brooke served fresh bread, homemade jams, and fruits. I researched an incredible trail last night. It's a bit more secluded, but the view is spectacular. When did you research? I didn't see you using the computer. Michael took a slice of bread. While you were sleeping, I couldn't switch off. Brooke averted her gaze. I found valuable tips in hiker forums. Emma played with the crumbs on her plate, drawing shapes with her finger. Can I take my Explorer backpack? Of course, Princess. Take everything you think is important. While Emma ran to pack her things, Michael observed Brooke washing the dishes. Are you okay? You seem tense. I'm great, just eager to get going. Brooke dried her hands on the dish towel. Sometimes I need physical activity to truly relax. Michael hugged her from behind. Thank you for taking care of everything. I know Emma isn't your responsibility, but you've been. Don't say that. Brooke turned in his arms. We're building a family, Michael. Emma is part of that. But there was something in her eyes that didn't match her loving words. Michael couldn't identify what it was, but a small uneasiness settled in his chest. Emma returned with her pink backpack, heavy with her treasures. I'm ready. I brought my binoculars, flashlight, notebook, and a water bottle. Perfect. We'll be the best explorers in Pine Valley. Michael grabbed his own backpack, checking that he had enough water and snacks. A few miles away in the rural area of town, Jack. Wilson was finishing feeding his chickens when he noticed something strange. Thor, his retired German shepherd, was restless. The dog walked in circles around the yard, sniffing the air intensely. What is it, Thor? Smell a skunk again? Jax scratched his graying head. Thor had been one of the best search and rescue dogs in the Colorado State Police. Retired for 2 years, he lived peacefully with Jack, but his instincts remained sharp. That morning, something in the wind awakened old training memories. The dog barked once, looking toward the mountains. Jack followed his gaze, but saw nothing beyond the morning mist. Easy, old friend. Must be just some wild animal passing by. But Thor wasn't calming down. He remained restless, as if he knew something important was about to happen. Back at the lodge, the Anderson family was preparing to leave. Brooke checked her phone once more, quickly typing a message. "Who are you talking to so much?" Michael asked, adjusting his backpack. "Work. Some emergencies that need to be resolved even on the weekend." Brooke put away her phone. "Ready? Now I'm all yours." They left the lodge and followed the main road until they reached the trailhead. The place was more isolated than Michael had expected, with a small faded sign indicating the path. "Are you sure it's here?" he asked, observing the narrow entrance between the trees. "Absolutely, trust me." Brooke was already walking ahead. "The best places are always the most hidden." Emma held her father's hand, excited but a little apprehensive. "Daddy, this trail seems different from others." "How so, sweetie?" "More silent. There's no noise from other tourists." Michael looked around. Emma was right. Normally, popular trails in Pine Valley were busy, especially on weekends. Here they could only hear the sounds of nature. "That's exactly what makes it special," said Brooke. "We'll have the mountain all to ourselves." As they advanced, the trail became steeper and narrower. The vegetation was dense and low branches forced them to duck frequently. Emma began to complain of tiredness. "How much further, Brooke?" asked Michael, carrying his daughter in his arms. "Not much. The viewpoint is just ahead." But Michael couldn't see any sign of a viewpoint. The trail continued upward, getting narrower and more dangerous. Some rocks were loose and the ground covered with wet leaves made steps uncertain. "Daddy, I don't like this place," whispered Emma in his ear. "Why not, Princess? It feels like someone is watching us." Michael looked around but saw only trees and bushes. "It's your imagination, sweetie. There's nobody here." Brooke stopped abruptly and turned around. "You're both too slow. We need to reach the viewpoint before the mist rises." "Brooke, Emma is tired. Maybe we should go back and choose an easier trail." Michael was beginning to feel uncomfortable. "No. I mean, it would be a shame to waste all this effort. We're almost there." There was something almost desperate in Brooke's voice. Michael observed her more carefully. Her hands trembled slightly, and she wouldn't stop checking her phone. "You expecting an important call?" "So no, it's just, the coverage here is terrible. I'm checking if I still have a signal." Emma took her backpack and began rummaging through her things, looking for her water bottle. That's when she found something she didn't remember putting there, a folded map with notes in red pen. "Daddy, look at this." She showed him the paper. Michael took the map and unfolded it. It was a detailed map of the region with various trails marked. One of them, highlighted in red, corresponded exactly to the path they were following. There were handwritten notes, times, distances, and what looked like geographic coordinates. "Brooke, where did this map come from?" Brooke paled at seeing the paper in Michael's hands. It must have fallen from my bag when I was packing Emma's things." "But you said you researched everything online. Why do you have a physical map with handwritten notes?" The silence that followed was interrupted only by the wind in the trees. Brooke was visibly struggling to find an explanation, while Michael began to realize that something was very wrong with this situation. Emma observed the two adults, feeling the tension grow. Instinctively, she held her father's hand tighter. In the surrounding mountains, the wind seemed to whisper warnings that only a child could hear. The map trembled in Michael's hands as he waited for an answer from Brooke. The mountain wind seemed to have suddenly cooled, and Emma moved closer to her father, feeling the change in the atmosphere. "Brooke, I'm waiting for an explanation." Michael's voice came out more serious than he intended. "Michael, you're making a storm in a teacup." Brooke forced a laugh, but her hands remained nervous. "I got this map at the lodge reception. Mrs. Eleanor gave it to me when I said I wanted to explore less-known trails. But these notes," Michael pointed to the red marks, "they seem very specific. Coordinates, times, must be from other guests who used the map before. You know how it is. People note their discoveries to help other adventurers." Emma tugged at the hem of her father's shirt. "Daddy, can I have some water? I'm thirsty." "Of course, Princess." Michael helped his daughter get her water bottle, but his eyes didn't leave Brooke. There was something in her explanation that didn't completely convince him. Brooke took advantage of the distraction and walked a few steps ahead. "Shall we continue? We don't want to miss the best light of the day." They resumed walking, but the mood had changed. Michael carried Emma on his back, watching Brooke's every move more carefully. The trail was becoming increasingly steep and isolated, quite different from the safe, well-marked paths he usually chose. "Is this trail really safe for children?" he asked after a few minutes. "Of course it is. Just because it's not full of tourists doesn't mean it's dangerous." Brooke didn't turn to answer, maintaining a hurried pace. Emma whispered in her father's ear, "Daddy, why is Brooke in such a hurry?" "I don't know, sweetie. Maybe she just wants to make the most of the day." But Michael had also noticed Brooke's strange urgency. She checked her phone constantly, even without having a signal, and seemed to be following the map with almost military precision. Further ahead, the trail forked into two paths. To the left, a gentle, well-marked ascent headed toward what appeared to be a traditional viewpoint. To the right, a narrower, steeper path disappeared among dense trees. Michael stopped at the fork. "Which way do we go?" "To the right," Brooke answered immediately without consulting the map. "Are you sure? The path on the left seems safer and even has a sign." "Michael, trust me, the most beautiful viewpoint is this way." Brooke was already walking down the right path. "The best views are always the hardest to reach." Emma got down from her father's back and walked to the sign on the left. "Daddy, it says here White Rocks Viewpoint, 800 meters. The other side doesn't have any sign." Michael felt a chill in his stomach. "Brooke, I think we'd better follow the marked path. We have a child with us." "What exaggerated protection, Michael." Brooke turned, and for the first time her irritation was visible. Emma needs to learn that life isn't always about the easiest path. It's not about exaggerated protection. It's about responsibility. Responsibility. The word came out of Brooke's mouth with a bitter tone. "You want to talk about responsibility? A father who barely sees his daughter during the week." The comment hit Michael like a punch. Emma looked between the two adults, sensing the growing tension. "That was unnecessary, Brooke." "It was just the truth." Brooke crossed her arms. "You're always running away from real responsibilities, Michael. You hide at work to avoid facing what really matters." "And what would that be, according to you?" "That Emma represents everything you lost, that looking at her hurts because she reminds you of Melissa, and that you prefer to outsource parenting rather than really assuming the role of father." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma felt tears beginning to form in her eyes, not completely understanding what was happening, but perceiving it was about her. Michael took a deep breath, controlling his anger. "We're not going to discuss this here in front of Emma. Why not? She has the right to know what kind of father she has." "Brooke, stop. Now." Emma began to cry softly. "Daddy, I don't want to hike anymore. Can I go back?" Michael knelt beside his daughter, hugging her. "Of course, Princess. In fact, we're all going back." "No," Brooke shouted, surprising them both. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shout. It's just that I organized everything with such care it would be a shame to waste it." Michael observed Brooke more carefully. There was something almost desperate about her insistence. Why is it so important to you that we follow this specific path? Because, Brooke hesitated, visibly struggling with herself. Because I want us to have a special moment, just us, away from everything and everyone. We can have special moments without putting Emma at risk. What risk, Michael? It's just a trail. Emma tugged at her father's sleeve again. Daddy, can I tell you something? Of course, sweetie. I heard Brooke talking on the phone last night. She said today would be the day, that after today everything would be different. Michael felt his blood freeze. He looked at Brooke, who had completely paled. Emma, you must have misunderstood, said Brooke, but her voice came out trembling. I didn't misunderstand. You also said that the girl wouldn't be a problem anymore. The world seemed to stop. Michael rose slowly, holding Emma protectively against himself. Brooke, what was that conversation? Michael, you don't understand. It's not what it seems. Then explain it to me, now. Brooke looked around as if searching for an exit. The narrow path to the right seemed to extend infinitely into the forest, while the one on the left led back to civilization. She began, but was interrupted by the sound of a cell phone ringing. Michael checked his own device, but he had no signal. The ring was coming from Brooke's phone. She looked at the screen and her face completely transformed. Pure panic. Are you expecting someone? Asked Michael. No, I need to answer. Brooke stepped away a few paces. Hello? Michael couldn't hear the conversation, but he observed Brooke's expressions change from panic to relief, then to determination. When she hung up, she seemed like a different person. Change of plans, she said, putting the phone away. We'll follow the right path after all. Trust me, it will be worth it. Brooke, after what Emma overheard yesterday, I think we'd better go back. We can't go back now, Michael, we can't. There was something final in her voice, as if it were no longer a request, but a statement. Michael picked Emma up and took a step toward the left path. Then we'll separate here. Emma and I will take the safe path. Michael, please, you don't understand. If you don't come with me... What, Brooke? What will happen? She opened her mouth to respond, but just shook her head. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder, more calculated. All right. We'll go your way then. But don't say I didn't warn you that you missed the most beautiful view in Pine Valley. Michael didn't believe Brooke's sudden change, but decided not to argue. They started walking down the left path, but they hadn't taken 10 steps when Brooke stopped. You two go ahead, I need to tie my shoelace. Michael hesitated. Something was wrong, but Emma was tired and scared, and he wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. They continued walking, hearing Brooke's steps right behind them. That's when Michael realized the steps had stopped. He turned and saw that Brooke was no longer on the trail. She had disappeared at the fork, probably following the path to the right. Brooke, he shouted, but only heard the echo of his own voice. Emma clung to her father's neck. Daddy, where's Brooke? Michael looked at the empty trail behind them, then at the path to the right, where Brooke had disappeared. A sense of imminent danger took hold of him, but he couldn't understand where it was coming from or what it meant. Michael stood at the fork for long minutes, alternating his gaze between the two paths. Emma remained quiet in his arms, but he could feel his daughter's small heart beating rapidly against his chest. Daddy, why did Brooke leave? I don't know, Princess, but let's continue our walk. Just the two of us. How about that? Emma nodded, but Michael could tell she wasn't convinced. Neither was he. Something in Brooke's attitude in the last few hours had triggered all his paternal alarms, instincts he didn't even know he possessed. They followed the left path toward White Rock's viewpoint. The trail was well marked, and Michael began to feel safer. Maybe Brooke just wanted to explore on her own. Maybe she was irritated with the discussion and needed time. Daddy, do you think Brooke is mad at us? Why do you ask that, sweetie? Because she said bad things about you. And about me too. Michael stopped and put Emma on the ground, kneeling to be at her height. Emma, look at me. You are the most important thing in my life. Never doubt that. But she said you don't like looking at me because I remind you of Mommy. Michael's heart broke. Sweetie, it's true that you remind me of your mother. You have her eyes, her smile. But that doesn't make me sad, it makes me happy. Because it's like she's still here through you. Then why do you spend so much time away? Emma's simple and direct question hit him like lightning. Because I thought working hard was the best way to take care of you. To ensure you had everything you needed. But I don't need things, Daddy, I need you. Michael hugged his daughter, feeling tears burn his eyes. You're right, Princess, and I promise things will change. While father and daughter shared this moment a few miles away, Thor was walking restlessly around Jack's yard. The German shepherd couldn't calm down since morning. His search and rescue instincts, shaped by years of training, screamed that something was wrong. Thor, what the devil is happening with you today? Jack observed the dog with concern. You're acting like it's an emergency operation. Thor barked once, staring fixedly at the mountains. Then he ran to the fence, returned to Jack, and repeated the movement. It was a behavior pattern that Jack recognized from active duty times. You're sensing someone in danger, aren't you, old friend? The dog barked again, this time more urgently. Jack looked at the mountains covered in mist. In the decades living there, he had learned to trust Thor's instincts. The animal never made mistakes. All right, Thor, let's take a look. Jack grabbed his emergency backpack, a habit kept from the days when he did volunteer rescues in the region. Water, ropes, first aid kit, and a radio communicator. Thor shot ahead, leading the way with the precision of a biological GPS. Back on the trail, Michael and Emma had reached White Rock's viewpoint. The view was truly spectacular. The valley stretched below them like a green sea, dotted with the colorful houses of Pine Valley. It's beautiful, Daddy. It is, sweetie. Michael sat on one of the rocks, pulling Emma onto his lap. I'm glad we came this way. Are you worried about Brooke? Michael hesitated. He didn't want to worry Emma, but he also couldn't ignore the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong. A little, but I'm sure she's fine. Daddy, can I tell you something that might be important? Of course, Princess. Last night, when you were taking a shower, Brooke messed with my backpack. She put that map inside. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. Are you sure? Yes. She didn't see that I was watching through the door crack, and she also took a picture of my backpack with her phone. A picture of your backpack? Why? I don't know. But afterward she made a call and said, everything is as agreed. The child has everything she needs to make it look like she got lost on her own. Michael stood up abruptly, making Emma slip from his lap. The pieces of a sinister puzzle started to fit together in his mind. Emma, are you absolutely sure of what you heard? Yes, Daddy, and there's one more thing. What? She mentioned a name, Richard. She said Richard was waiting at the agreed location. The name Richard echoed in Michael's mind like an alarm bell. Richard Mason, the partner who had tried to force the sale of the company months ago. The same Richard who had suggested that Michael needed a vacation after rejecting the proposal. My God. Michael picked Emma up. Sweetie, we need to get out of here. Now. Why, Daddy? What's happening? I don't know exactly yet, but I think someone wants to harm us. They began descending the trail rapidly, but Michael felt that every second lost could be crucial. His mind worked feverishly, trying to understand the plan that was unfolding. If his suspicions were correct, Brooke hadn't disappeared. She was following a carefully planned script, the map in Emma's backpack, the mysterious calls, the insistence on following isolated trails. Daddy, you're hurting me, Emma complained, being carried too tightly. I'm sorry, Princess. Michael put her on the ground but held her hand firmly. I need you to be very brave now, okay? We're going to walk very fast until we reach the road. But when they reached the fork, Michael stopped. There, right in the middle of the path, was Brooke's backpack, open with things scattered on the ground as if she had tripped and fallen. Brooke, he shouted instinctively. The answer came from the right trail, a weak cry for help but clearly feminine. Help! Michael, I'm hurt! Michael looked at Emma, then at the path from which the cry came. All his paternal instincts screamed not to go in that direction. But how could he ignore someone asking for help? "Daddy, please don't go that way," Emma whispered, grabbing his leg. "Brooke might really be injured, sweetie. Or it could be a trap." The maturity of Emma's observation surprised him. She was only 6 years old, but her childish intuition was picking up on dangers that his adult mind struggled to process. "Help!" The cry came again, weaker this time. Michael took out his phone, but still had no signal. He looked at the left trail, which would lead them back to safety, then to the right from where the calls for help were coming. That's when he heard another sound, barking, strong and continuous, coming from the dense forest and rapidly approaching. "Daddy, what's that noise? It sounds like a dog." The barking got closer, and Michael could hear branches breaking and leaves moving. Something big was coming toward them through the dense vegetation. Emma hid behind her father's legs, while Michael looked for something he could use as protection. That's when Thor emerged from the trees, followed closely by Jack. "Are you okay, mister?" Jack was panting, clearly having walked quickly to get there. Yes, we're fine, but there's a woman calling for help down that trail." Jack looked in the indicated direction, then observed Thor. The dog was tense, focused, but not in the direction of the cries for help. He was looking at Michael and Emma with an intensity that Jack knew well. "Thor is saying you two are in danger," said Jack calmly. "What do you mean?" "This dog spent 10 years sniffing out trouble. He knows when something isn't right." Jack approached Emma, kneeling. "And you, little one? Are you feeling afraid of something?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Can you help us get out of here, sir?" Jack looked at Thor, who had positioned himself between them and the right trail like a silent guardian. "Yes, I can, and I think we arrived just in time." If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. Jack observed the scene with experienced eyes. Brooke's backpack theatrically scattered, cries for help coming from an isolated trail, and Thor on maximum alert. Everything pointed to a dangerous situation. "Mister, what's your name?" he asked calmly. "Michael Anderson. This is my daughter, Emma." "And the woman who's shouting?" "Brooke Miller. My girlfriend." Jack noticed the hesitation in Michael's voice. "How long have you been together?" "A few months. Why do you ask?" "Because I've been doing rescues in these mountains for 15 years, and I've seen many traps. Thor has too." Jack stroked the German shepherd's head. "This dog has saved dozens of lives, but he's also sniffed out dozens of lies." Emma approached Thor, who received her with gentleness, licking her hand. "He's beautiful. How does he know we're in danger?" "Thor has a special instinct, little one. He senses when people have bad intentions." Michael looked at the right trail, from which the calls for help continued to come, now more spaced out. "But what if she's really injured?" "Help!" The cry came again, but this time Michael paid more attention. There was something strange about the tone, almost staged. "Daddy," Emma pulled his sleeve. "Brooke's voice sounds different." Jack agreed. "The little girl is right. True cries for help have a desperation we can't fake." "So what do you think is happening?" "I think someone wants to lure you to an isolated location." Jack checked his radio communicator. "And by Thor's behavior, I think it's not for anything good." Michael quickly told them about the suspicious conversations Emma had overheard, the mysterious map, and the name Richard. Jack listened in silence, nodding gravely. "This Richard, would he have reasons to want to harm you?" "Financial reasons, yes. He wants to force the sale of my company." "And your daughter, would she be an obstacle to these plans?" The question hit Michael like a punch. Of course, if something happened to him and Emma, who would inherit the company? Brooke as his partner? Or Richard as the surviving associate? "My God," murmured Michael, "they planned all of this." "Help! Michael, please!" Brooke's voice sounded again, but now Michael could hear the artificiality. "We're not going that way," said Michael firmly, picking Emma up. "Let's go." But when they turned to leave by the left trail, they found the path blocked. Two men appeared from among the trees, one tall and thin, the other shorter and robust. Both wore hiking clothes, but there was something too professional about their movements. "Michael Anderson?" asked the taller one. "Who wants to know?" "People who have a business proposal for you." Jack positioned himself protectively in front of Michael and Emma, while Thor began to growl softly. "What kind of proposal is discussed in the middle of the woods?" asked Jack. "The kind that can't wait," replied the shorter man, revealing something at his waist that briefly gleamed in the sun. Michael felt Emma grip his neck tighter. "What do you want?" "We want to talk about selling Anderson and Associates. I already told Richard I'm not interested." "Circumstances have changed," said the tall man, stepping forward. "Now you have more reasons to reconsider." "What reasons?" "Your daughter, for example." The explicit threat made Michael see red. "If you touch one finger on her—" "Nobody's going to touch anyone," interrupted Jack calmly, "as long as everyone here is civilized." Thor had positioned himself between the men and the group. His fur bristled and muscles tense. The dog emitted a continuous growl that made the two men keep their distance. "Where's Brooke?" asked Michael. "Safe, waiting for you at the agreed location." "What agreed location?" "A place where you can have a calm conversation about the future of the company." Emma whispered in her father's ear. "Daddy, are they the bad men in the story?" "They're not bad men, Emma," said the tall man, overhearing. "They're just businessmen." "Businessmen don't threaten children," replied Jack harshly. "And nosy old men don't usually get involved in matters that aren't their business," retorted the short man. Thor growled louder, taking a step forward. The two men instinctively backed away. "I suggest you get out of our way," said Jack. "I have a radio and can call for help at any moment." "You can try," said the tall man, "but I doubt you have a signal here." Michael took advantage of the tension between the men and Jack to whisper to Emma, "Sweetie, if I say now, you run behind that big tree and hide. Don't come out until me or Mr. Jack call you." Emma nodded, trembling but brave. "Michael," called the tall man, "let's make this simple. You come with us, sign the company sale papers, and everyone goes home safely." "And if I refuse?" "Accidents happen in the mountains, especially with inexperienced tourists who venture onto dangerous trails." "You're talking about kidnapping and blackmail," said Jack. "We're talking about a business opportunity that can't be refused." It was then that Michael heard footsteps approaching from the right trail. Brooke appeared, but she wasn't injured. She was walking normally with an unknown man beside her. "Michael, finally," she said, as if nothing had happened. "Sorry I walked away, but we needed to talk about some details." "What details, Brooke?" "About your future, our future." She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Richard is here to explain everything." The man next to Brooke stepped forward. Richard Mason, the partner Michael had rejected months. Gergo, older with graying hair, a respectable appearance that contrasted with the sinister circumstances. "Michael, good to see you. I hope you understand this is just business. Business doesn't involve threats to my daughter. Nobody wants to threaten Emma. We want to protect her, and you too." Richard opened a folder he was carrying. "I have the sale papers here. Fair. Value excellent conditions. You come out rich and free to devote yourself entirely to fatherhood. And if I don't sign?" "Why wouldn't you sign? It's a great deal." Michael looked around. He was surrounded by 5 adults with dubious intentions on an isolated trail with his 6-year-old daughter in his arms. Only Jack and Thor seemed to be on his side. "I need to think." "There's not much to think about," said Brooke. "It's a unique opportunity. An opportunity that you created through lies and manipulation." "Michael, you've always been too dramatic," sighed Brooke. "This is just corporate reorganization." Emma, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation, finally spoke. "Daddy, I don't like these people. Can we go home?" "Soon, Princess." "The girl is smart," said Richard. "She knows how to recognize when adults are resolving important things. Don't talk to my daughter." "Michael, be reasonable," insisted Brooke. "Sign the papers, and we can all go down this mountain as friends." Jack observed everything in silence, calculating distances and possibilities. Thor remained in attack position, waiting for a command or an opportunity. Michael looked at the papers in Richard's hand, then at Brooke, then at the two men blocking his exit. All the pieces of the puzzle finally fit together in his mind. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "Months," answered Brooke honestly, "since we met, so nothing you said or did was real." "The business was real, Michael. The feelings, well, that's complicated." Michael kissed Emma's forehead and whispered, "I love you, Princess. Remember that always." Then, looking directly at Richard, he said, "You can all go to hell." The silence that followed Michael's refusal was broken only by the wind in the trees and Thor's low growling. Richard closed the folder with a theatrical sigh. "That's a shame, Michael. I really hoped you'd be more cooperative." "Cooperative?" Michael felt anger rise in his throat. "You set up an ambush, threatened my daughter, and still want me to be cooperative?" "Nobody threatened anybody," said Brooke, but her voice sounded less convincing now. "We just presented a business opportunity." With emotional blackmail and physical intimidation, Jack stepped forward. "Mister, as much as I respect your courage, maybe it's better to hear what they have to say. Your daughter—" "My daughter is not a bargaining chip," Michael interrupted, "and I'm not going to hand over my company to a bunch of criminals." "Criminals?" Richard laughed. "Michael, this is just capitalism in action." "Daddy," Emma whispered, "I'm scared." "I know, Princess. But we're going to get out of here. I promise." The tall man stepped forward. "Mr. Anderson, you're making things difficult for everyone, and you're making things difficult for yourselves. Kidnapping and coercion are serious crimes." "Who mentioned kidnapping?" Brooke opened her arms theatrically. "We're all here voluntarily enjoying a beautiful day in the mountains." "And discussing business," added Richard. Michael looked around again. Even if he could get past the two men blocking the trail, he couldn't run carrying Emma, and leaving her there was out of the question. "What exactly do you want me to do?" "Simple," said Richard, reopening the folder. "Sign here, transferring your company shares to me. In exchange, you receive a generous amount and the freedom to go on with your life." "And my daughter?" "Your daughter stays with you, of course." "Nobody wants to separate you." "Lie," said Emma surprisingly. "I heard you saying I would be a permanent problem." Brooke paled. "Emma, you didn't understand correctly." "Yes, I did. You said it would be easier if I disappeared, along with—" "Daddy!" The silence that followed was deafening. Richard looked at Brooke with disapproval. "Brooke, you shouldn't have—" "She heard wrong," Brooke protested, but her voice was desperate now. Michael felt the world spin. "You were planning to hurt us?" "No." Richard raised his hands. "That wasn't part of the plan. Brooke acted on her own." "I didn't act on my own. It was you who said it would be cleaner if—" "Shut up, Brooke." The argument between the criminals revealed more than they intended. Michael realized that not everyone there agreed on the methods. Perhaps he could use this to his advantage. "So, you're not united in this," said Michael. "Some just want money, others want to eliminate witnesses." "Nobody wants to eliminate anybody," said the short man, but his voice didn't sound convincing. "Then why did you bring weapons? They're just security measures." Thor, who had remained in a defensive position, began to move. Slowly, the dog approached the two men blocking the exit, keeping low and silent. Jack noticed the movement and understood. Thor was positioning himself for a coordinated attack. "Michael," Jack said calmly, "when I say now, you run with Emma down the left trail. Don't look back. I'm not going to leave you here. Don't worry about us. Thor and I have been through worse." Brooke realized something was happening. "What are you whispering about?" "We're discussing your options," Jack responded diplomatically. "The options are simple," said Richard. "Sign the papers or—" He didn't finish the sentence because Thor suddenly exploded into motion. The German shepherd leaped at the shorter man, knocking him to the ground before he could react. At the same instant, Jack shouted, "Now!" and pushed Michael toward the trail. Michael ran with Emma in his arms, hearing behind him the chaos that had broken out. Shouts, barking, and the sound of people stumbling in the vegetation. "Daddy, will Thor be okay?" Emma asked as they ran. "He's a hero, Princess. Heroes are always okay. But Michael was worried. Jack was elderly, and no matter how well trained Thor was, they were 2 against 5. After running for a few minutes, Michael stopped to catch his breath. He could hear distant voices behind them, but couldn't distinguish if they were friends or enemies. "Daddy, look!" Emma pointed ahead. On the trail coming toward them were 2 state troopers. Michael almost cried with relief. "Help!" he shouted. "We need help!" The troopers approached quickly. "Sir, what's happening?" Michael quickly explained the situation. The troopers exchanged glances. They had also received a call about suspicious activity in the area. "How many people are involved?" asked one. "Of the troopers. 5 adults besides us, and an elderly man with a dog who helped us." "Jack and Thor," said the other trooper. "We know them. We'll get reinforcements." While one of the troopers spoke on the radio, the other escorted Michael and Emma back to the main trail. There they found a scene Michael would never forget. Jack was sitting calmly on a rock, drinking water from a bottle. Thor was by his side, apparently unharmed. Around them, the 5 criminals were sitting on the ground with their hands behind their heads, clearly defeated. "How did you manage?" asked Michael, incredulous. "Thor is retired, but he hasn't lost his touch," smiled Jack. "And when you have a trained German shepherd on your side, 5 city criminals aren't a big deal." "They were armed." Thor disarmed 2 of them before they could react. The others surrendered when they saw they had no chance. Emma got down from Michael's arms and ran to Thor, who greeted her with a wagging tail and tongue out. "You're the best dog in the world," she said, hugging his furry neck. Brooke, sitting on the ground with the other criminals, looked at Michael with an expression that mixed desperation and remorse. "Michael, this all got out of control. It wasn't supposed to be like this." "How was it supposed to be, Brooke? You lied about everything from day one." "The feelings weren't a lie. I really fell in love with you, but not enough to give up the plan." Brooke lowered her head without an answer. Richard, meanwhile, maintained a defiant posture. "Michael, you can still reconsider. Even under these circumstances, the deal is still worth it. The only deal I'm interested in now is seeing you in jail." The reinforcements arrived quickly. More officers, paramedics, and even a rescue helicopter. That landed in a nearby clearing. Emma watched everything, fascinated. "Daddy, it's like an action movie." "Yes, it is, Princess, and we're the heroes of the story. And Thor too, especially Thor." While the criminals were being handcuffed and taken away, Michael approached Jack. "How can I thank you for what you did?" "No need to thank me. It's what any decent person would do." "No, it's not. You risked your lives for us." Jack stroked Thor. "This old guy here sensed you needed help. I just followed his instinct. Can I do anything for you?" "Yes, you can," Jack smiled. "Be a good father to that girl. She's special." Michael looked at Emma, who was telling the officers about the whole adventure, gesturing animatedly. "You know something, Mr. Jack. I think I finally understand that." 3 hours later, Michael and Emma were at the Pine Valley police station, where the sordid details of the plan began to emerge. Sheriff Martinez, an experienced man with graying hair, conducted the interrogations with the precision of someone who had seen it all. "Mr. Anderson, from what we've been able to determine so far, this scheme had been planned for at least 6 months, explained the sheriff. "Brooke Miller approached you specifically for this purpose." Michael shook his head, still processing the magnitude of the betrayal. Emma was sitting beside him, drawing in a notebook that a police officer had given her. Even after everything she'd been through, the girl showed a resilience that impressed everyone around. "How did they get such detailed information about my life?" "Richard Mason hired private investigators. They knew about your routine, your habits, even about Emma's nanny and her school schedule." My God! The initial idea was simpler, just to force the sale of the company through psychological pressure. But when you proved stubborn, they escalated to more extreme methods. The sheriff showed some printed sheets. "We found these conversations on Brooke's phone. She and Richard were discussing scenarios where you two, well, where you wouldn't return from the trail." Michael felt a chill down his spine. "They really planned to murder us?" "Some in the group, yes. Mainly Brooke and one of the men accompanying her. Richard seemed more interested just in the financial aspect, but he did nothing to prevent it. Exactly. He'll be charged with conspiracy, kidnapping, and attempted extortion. Brooke and the others will face more serious charges. Emma stopped drawing and looked at her father. Daddy, will Brooke go to jail? Yes, Princess, for a long time. Did she lie about liking us? Michael hesitated. How do you explain to a 6-year-old child the complexity of someone who can feel genuine affection and still plan something terrible? I think she had confused feelings, sweetie. Sometimes people do very wrong things even when part of them doesn't want to. Sheriff Martinez nodded approvingly. That's a very wise explanation, Mr. Anderson. Can I see Mr. Jack and Thor? Asked Moore. Emma. Of course, they're in the next room finishing giving their statement. When they found Jack and Thor, Emma ran to hug the dog, who received her with the same gentleness as always. Jack was talking with a younger officer, clearly relating stories from his service days, and then Thor sensed something was wrong first thing in the morning. Jack was saying, "This dog never makes mistakes about people's intentions." "Mr. Jack?" Emma approached timidly. "Thank you for saving us." "I wasn't the one who saved you, little one. It was this furry hero here." Thor licked Emma's face, making her laugh for the first time since it all began. "Mr. Wilson," said Michael, "I have no words to thank you for what you did. If you hadn't appeared—" "No need to think about that, young man. The important thing is that everyone is safe. Even so, I want to do something, anything." Jack thoughtfully scratched his chin. "You know what? There is a way you can help me. Tell me. Bring this girl to visit us once in a while. Thor has grown attached to her, and I like seeing happy children running around the yard." Emma clapped her hands. "And can we, Daddy? Can we visit Thor all the time?" "Of course, Princess. Whenever you want." The sheriff approached. "Mr. Anderson, we've completed the main procedures for today. You can return to Chicago whenever you want, but we'll need you to return for the trial." "When should that happen?" "Probably in a few months. The case is complex, but with the evidence we have, I don't believe it will be difficult to get convictions." Michael nodded. "Thank you for your work. The entire team has been impeccable. It's our duty. And if I may say so, you have a very brave daughter." Emma smiled shyly. "I just did what Daddy taught me. Always tell the truth." Leaving the E1 police station, Michael stopped in Pine Valley's main square. The sun was setting, tinting the mountains in golden tones. After everything that had happened, the beauty of the place could still touch him. "Daddy, can we stay one more day?" asked Emma. "I want to see Pine Valley again, but this time just the two of us. Aren't you afraid to stay here?" "No. The bad men were arrested, and now we have Mr. Jack and Thor as friends." Michael knelt to his daughter's height. "Emma, you were very brave today, braver than me." "How so?" "You noticed something was wrong before I did. Your observations saved us. I just paid attention to what people were doing and saying. The teacher always says it's important to pay attention. Your teacher is right, and I'm going to start paying more attention too." "To what?" "To you. To what you need, what you feel, what you think." Michael hugged his daughter. "I'm going to stop working so much and we'll spend more time together." "Promise?" "I promise." They walked around the square, observing local families enjoying the late afternoon. Children played while parents chatted on benches. It was a simple scene, but one that Michael had never really noticed before. "Daddy, can I ask you a difficult question?" "Of course, Princess." "Do you miss Mommy?" Michael stopped walking. It was the first time Emma had asked this directly. "I miss her very much, sweetie, every day." "Me too, but sometimes I forget her face, and that makes me sad." "Do you want to know a secret?" Emma nodded. "Sometimes I forget details of your mother's face too, but then I look at you and remember everything, because you have her eyes, her smile, and even her way of tilting her head when you're thinking. So I help you remember Mommy. You help me keep her alive in my heart, and that's the most important thing anyone can do." Emma smiled and took her father's hand. "So we'll take care of each other, forever." "Forever, Princess." That night, staying at a different lodge, Michael tucked Emma into bed in the room next to his, by her choice, as she wanted her independence, but also wanted to know her father was nearby. Before sleeping, Emma asked one last question. "Daddy, do you think Brooke was really in love with you?" Michael thought carefully about his answer. "I think she felt something, yes, but true love doesn't hurt the people we love. True love protects. Like you protect me, like I'll always protect you, and like I'll protect you too." Michael smiled. "Exactly." Outside the window, Pine Valley rested silently under a starry sky. Somewhere in town, Jack and Thor were also preparing to sleep, knowing they had made a difference in the lives of two special people. And for the first time in years, Michael slept deeply, without nightmares about business or responsibilities, only with the certainty that he had found what really mattered. 6 months later, Michael parked his car at the entrance to Jack's property. The rural landscape of Pine Valley was even more beautiful in spring, with colorful flowers dotting the fields and the air perfumed by eucalyptus trees. "We're here," shouted Emma, jumping out of the car even before Michael turned off the engine. Thor came running from the yard, barking with joy as he recognized his special visitors. Emma knelt to receive the enthusiastic hug from the German shepherd, laughing as he covered her with licks. "Thor, I brought a present for you." Jack emerged from the house, smiling at the scene. "Look who's here, our favorite visitor." "Mr. Jack," Emma ran to hug the elderly man. "I brought photos from our last trip to show you." Michael approached, carrying a picnic basket. "Good afternoon, Mr. Jack. How are you both?" "Couldn't be better." "Thor gets restless every weekend, as if he knows you're going to show up. He's very intelligent. Intelligent and sentimental. You've become family to us." Over the past few months, Michael had rigorously kept his promise. He drastically reduced his working hours, hired a trusted partner to share the company responsibilities, and transformed weekends into sacred time with Emma. They had traveled to beaches, mountains, historic towns, but they always returned to Pine Valley, always visited Jack and Thor. The place had become a symbol of new beginnings for them. "Daddy, can I show Mr. Jack the photos from Golden Hills?" "Of course, Princess." While Emma and Jack browsed through the photo album, Michael watched Thor playing in the yard. The dog had aged a bit in recent months, but still maintained the dignity and bearing of a retired hero. "Mr. Jack, can I ask you a question?" "Sure, young man." "That day on the trail, how did you know it was a trap?" Jack smiled, stroking Thor's head. "Actually, he was the one who knew. I just trusted his instinct." "But weren't you afraid?" "We always feel fear, Michael. The difference is what we do with it." Jack looked at Emma, who was animatedly showing photos. "That day I looked at you two and saw a family in danger. I couldn't just turn my back. You saved us." "No, young man, you saved yourselves. Thor and I just helped." Michael reflected on the words. In recent months, he had realized that true salvation hadn't just happened on that trail. It had happened every day since then, in each conversation with Emma. In each moment he chose to be present instead of hiding at work. "Mr. Jack, I have news to share." "What news?" "I decided to sell the company." Jack raised his eyebrows, surprised. "Because of what happened?" "No, because of what I learned." Michael looked at Emma. "I realized I was building a financial empire to leave to my daughter, but I forgot to build memories to leave her." "And what will you do?" "I'm going to open a smaller office, with projects that allow me to be more present, and we're thinking of buying a house here in Pine Valley." "Here," Jack smiled. "What a wonderful idea." "Daddy's going to work from home," Emma interrupted, having overheard the conversation. "And I'll be able to visit Thor every day." "Not every day, Princess. We don't want to bother Mr. Jack." "Bother?" Jack laughed. "Young man, it would be a blessing to have you nearby." They had lunch in the yard, under the shade of a century-old mango tree. Emma told her school adventures, Michael shared his new work projects, and Jack told stories from his youth that made everyone laugh. After lunch, while Emma and Thor napped, under the tree Michael helped Jack tend to the garden. "Mr. Jack, can I make a confession?" "Feel free. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, thinking about what could have happened on that trail. Nightmares? Not exactly. More like reminders of gratitude. Michael stopped hoeing and looked at Emma sleeping next to Thor. That day changed everything for us. How so? Emma has always been a special girl, but I couldn't see it. I was so focused on working to give her the best that I forgot the best I could give was my presence. And now? Now I see everything. I see how she's brave, intelligent, observant. I see how she needs me, but also how I need her. Michael smiled. She teaches me things every day. What kind of things? To pay attention to details, to be honest about my feelings, to not accept excuses from people when they're not being truthful. Jack nodded. Children have that gift. They see through the masks adults wear. It's true. If I had listened to Emma from the beginning, about Brooke. But you listened when it mattered, and that made all the difference. Michael continued, hoeing in silence for a few minutes. Mr. Jack, can I ask about Thor? How did he know we were good people? Thor has a special gift. He can sense the connection between people. That day he saw the love that exists between you and Emma, even when you were trying to hide from it. Hide? Michael, you spent so much time running from the pain of having lost your wife that you were also hiding from the joy of having a daughter. The words hit Michael like a revelation. It was true, he had spent 3 years avoiding feeling anything too deeply, afraid that the pain would return. And now? Now you've chosen to feel everything. The longing for your wife, the love for your daughter, the gratitude for a second chance. That's what makes life real. Emma woke from her nap and came running toward them. Daddy, can I plant a flower for Mommy? Michael knelt beside his daughter. Of course, Princess, what kind of flower? A white rose, it was her favorite. How do you know? You told me, remember? The last time we talked about her. Michael smiled. In recent months, he had begun to speak openly about Melissa with Emma, sharing memories instead of hiding them. Mr. Jack, do you have white rose seedlings? I do. Let's plant them together. The three worked side by side, preparing a special bed in the garden. Thor supervised, lying on the grass, watching every movement attentively. Daddy, said Emma as she watered the newly planted seedling, do you think Mommy knows we're okay? I'm sure she does, sweetie. And that? We have new friends who take care of us? I'm sure of that too. Emma smiled. Then she must be happy. Very happy. When it was time to leave, Emma said goodbye to Thor with the same ritual as always, a long hug, whispers in his furry ear, and the promise to return soon. Thor, will you take care of Mr. Jack for me? The dog barked once as if agreeing. And will you continue to be the bravest dog in the world? Another bark, this time accompanied by a wagging tail. Mr. Jack, said Michael, thank you for everything. Once again. No need to thank me, young. Man, you've brought joy to our lives too. Even so, if you ever need anything, we already have everything we need. Health, friendship, and the certainty that we did the right thing when necessary. On the way back, Emma fell asleep in the back seat. Michael drove slowly, appreciating the landscape and reflecting on the past months. Brooke had been sentenced to 8 years in prison, Richard to 12. The other accomplices to lesser but significant sentences. The trial had been painful, but also liberating. Michael had testified with courage. Emma had been spared from testifying thanks to the work of the forensic psychologist. The company had been sold to a group of serious investors for a fair price. Michael kept a small stake and opened his own office, focused on smaller, more personal residential projects. And the house in Pine Valley had become a reality, a small but cozy property, 15 minutes from Jack's house. Emma had already chosen her room, the one with a view of the mountains and close enough to her father's, room for her to feel safe. Daddy, Emma murmured from the back seat. Yes, Princess? Are you happy now? Michael looked in the rearview mirror and saw his daughter's sleepy eyes. Very happy, Emma. And you? Me too. I think this is the best story we've ever lived. I think So too, sweetie, and it's just the beginning. Emma smiled and went back to sleep. Michael continued driving, knowing he was taking home not just his daughter, but a completely new version of himself. A version that had learned that true wealth wasn't in the deals he closed, but in the moments he shared. Who had discovered that being a father wasn't just about providing, but being present, and who had understood that sometimes you need to almost lose everything to discover what really matters. On the horizon, the mountains of Pine Valley stood out against the golden evening sky, promising many more adventures, but this time, real. Adventures built on love, trust, and the certainty that, together,